I do not mean to start most reviews off like this every week, but there was that, and there was that, and then there was that. Probably a bunch of other things, but I need to talk about this right now. How's it going, my fellow Mandalorians? Welcome to my review and breakdown of Chapter 11, The Siege. Directed by Carl Weathers. This episode was, as expected, a kind of like in-between journey. I have to admit, like a lot of us speculated since we knew kind of the following episode, which will have Ahsoka in it. I was speculating like a lot of people that maybe it'd be one of those like Luke Skywalker situations at the end where maybe he arrives in Corvus and then she like takes the hood off, and you get what I'm trying to say. But that didn't happen, but that doesn't matter. I can wait for Ahsoka because this episode was still a journey episode, but yet again delivers a lot of what I say this every week I love about the Mandalorian in between episodes, and it also gave us some major updates. I wouldn't even call this, and if people call this filler for crying out loud, we got a lot of answers, very obvious, insanely obvious answers in terms of Baby Yoda. Yes, Midichlorians, say what you will about that, but it's still kind of low-key interesting in terms of the grander plot and how this connects to Palpatine, frickin' Snoke. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Go ahead and like this video if you do go on to enjoy it. If you're enjoying my Mandalorian reviews, why not hit subscribe? A lot of you aren't subscribed to the channel who watch the channel. I know a lot of YouTubers say that, but it is true. So hit the subscribe button if you have been watching me for a little while now. So let's start right at the beginning. That was adorable. What can we say anymore? You would have thought maybe the Baby Yoda and Mando moments would get old to an extent, but I feel like that's nearly impossible now. And you may think, Boba, how dare you say that? They will never get old. But you would have thought, like on paper, okay, that was cute, but when will it kind of fade off? But no, I'm convinced it's never going to get old now, because when Baby Yoda was pulling the wire, he doesn't know which color's the right one. I even said, was it last episode or the episode before? It felt like he was actually kind of communicating now, and in this episode, he literally did go, huh? You know, it's adorable, and there's another word. I think it's my favorite Baby Yoda word, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Speaking of Baby Yoda, I love how we had Pedro Pascal kind of lifting up the helmet. It was just so cute, like Baby Yoda just wanted a little peek, you know, I want to see your face, but you know, we're not quite there yet. I wouldn't say convinced, but hopefully in the long run, especially after meeting Bo-Katan, the revelation, even though I think Mando hasn't, you know, really looked into that enough yet in terms of how he's a child of the Watch, extremist zealots, you know, who broke off from Mandalorian society. You don't really need me to repeat that, but what I said in my last review is this could be a way to get him to have more screen time, because his way, or should I say the Children of the Watcher's way, isn't the only way. So maybe throughout the seasons of The Mandalorian, he will just branch out and not necessarily have to stick to that specific creed of keeping a helmet on the entire time, because that's not what makes you strictly Mandalorian. I mean, it is in terms of the Children of the Watch, but you know, hopefully Bo-Katan will have a little bit more influence, and hopefully throughout the seasons it might become more about taking Mandalore back, which is where we might see good old Pedro Pascal's face. Okay, I thought that was going to fizz, but it didn't fizz. Because the Razor Crest is in such a state after the episode, the Heiress, they needed to go back to Navarro for repairs before they go to Corvus to find Ahsoka Tano. And this is where we met Carl Weathers again as Grief Karga, and Gina Carano as Cara Dune. It was very, very interesting seeing Navarro, the town, really prospering, because we also got that scene with Cara Dune going to the old Mandalorian covert, Mando's old covert location. It was basically being looted by just, I don't know, bandits, if you want to call them that. We had the old Mythosaur logo gone. Everything was essentially moved out of there, and I love how they reference there. It's like, oh, look, it's the Marshal, because that's the role she's playing. She's kind of like tidying up the place. And if it wasn't obvious already, they really are investing quite a bit into the cuteness of little kind of things in Star Wars, because we had that little Weasley kind of thing about to be eaten, and then he was really grateful to Cara for saving him. What was that? What was it? I don't know. Yet again, another cute Baby Yoda moment. Since the town is prospering, they even have a school for the kids. That was kind of really wholesome to see, but Baby Yoda was getting dropped off. This whole scene was hilarious, because for the first time this season, technically, actually that's not true, because he actually did use the Force to bring one of the eggs closer from Frog Lady's little egg container thing. I don't know if some of you missed that. I did mention it. By the way, he used the Force to steal the biscuit. I love how Baby Yoda was just like, wait, what is this school? What? Wait, what? Hey, food. Hey, Can I have food? Okay, I'm just gonna take your food. Oh yeah, and that brings me back to my earlier comment of my favorite Baby Yoda word. This has been said before, but he's like, Padu. It says in the subtitles he coos, but it's literally like P-A-D-U or P-A-T-U. Like, Padu. Best word in the world. Galaxy. And so since the repairs will take a while, obviously that means they need Mando's help whilst they can get it. And there's a green zone on this world that is completely safe, but over on the other side and other areas really, it's quite a problem. There's an old Imperial base, and that's actually where all the troops came from when they defeated Moff Gideon last season. And the base has been there since the Imperial expansion. It's got a skeleton crew, but there's a lot of heavy weaponry there. So if they could take that one last base out, then the whole planet would be safe. Can even become a major trading point in the sector. Like, it would be so good if they could just get rid of that. So it seemed like quite a good, thing to do, obviously. So Mando was up for that. The plan was to sneak in, overload the reactor, and get out fast. This is where the episode really picked up, and I really enjoyed it a lot more than what I think I thought I would. Not like putting down normal episodes, but I just thought this would be like a routine, fun adventure. But I didn't expect some of those bombs they dropped within the base, considering this was basically a scientific Imperial experimenting base for you know goddamn what. Mithril being there was interesting again. I enjoyed those interactions. He was basically tech support. And as soon as we had that scene with those Imperial scientists and they were just shouting, hurry up and purge the drives, and then he said destroy it, I automatically thought, first instinct, that maybe this pertains to the child, but I thought that's all we would get. But I did not expect the following unfolding scenes. So when they got in the room, they saw those tanks. And in those tanks were literally failed, like, kind of cloned experiments. And in my personal opinion, there's a bit of a mixed opinion here, or it's a little bit of both. It is perfectly plausible, since this is shortly after Return of the Jedi by a handful of years. I think that's Snoke. You could argue it's Palpatine, but maybe, like, with the adjusted brightness and contrast of what I show in these screen caps in these reviews, maybe you will agree with me. Like, Loki, we know what happens in the sequels. Like, the First Order was really just Palpatine's thing until, like, he planned to come back big time. He put, like, a puppet there, Snoke, who was literally a clone, as we found out in The Rise of Skywalker. There were failed attempts, la-di-da-da. Palpatine, as we know in the grand lore of Star Wars, maybe some of you don't know this, but he had multiple bases of experiments, multiple planets. And this one, in that tank, that body in there, the disfigured body, reminded me of Snoke, not so much a replacement host of Palpatine, because as we know in Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine managed to bring about a new body so his essence could, go back. You get what I'm trying to say. But I think this is him trying to, like, low-key bring about the beginning of the First Order. This links in with the child because we actually got that little message from Dr. Pershing from last season. If you remember, he had the child, like, and he was kind of doing something to him. And up until this moment, we didn't know what it was, but we do now. But he actually also felt sorry for the kid. Like, even though he was experimenting on him, he didn't want to, like, kill him. I always found that interesting about his character last season, and I always wondered if he would pop up again. So just to refresh your minds, this is exactly what Dr. Pershing said. He said, replicated the results of the subsequent trials, which also resulted in catastrophic failure. There were promising effects for an entire fortnight, but then sadly, the body rejected the blood. I highly doubt we'll find a donor with a higher M count, basically meaning midichlorians. I recommend that we suspend all experimentation. I fear the volunteer will meet the same regrettable fate if we proceed with the transfusion. Unfortunately, we have exhausted our initial supply of blood. The child is small, and I was only able to harvest a limited amount without killing him. If these experiments are to continue as requested, we would again require access to the donor. I will not disappoint you again, Moff Gideon. And that message was 3 days old, and lots of people had theories. I feel like this is fairly recent, that maybe Moff Gideon was trying to do experiments with the child so he could become the next leader, like similar to that of the Emperor, but a Force wielder. And I guess that's kind of cool because he had the Darksaber as well, so maybe he was trying to, like, make himself into that, which is, as I said, that's kind of a cool idea. But he really is the ultimate tool of the Emperor. He's trying to bring back the Empire, and through doing that, I guess he wants to bring back Papa Palpatine, but at the same time, he's serving the will, and that's through, I'm guessing, creating Snoke in these tanks, or as I said, maybe it's Palpatine, because at the end of the day, they needed to figure out how to also, bring Palpatine, and even still, he wasn't perfect in The Rise of Skywalker. There were still problems with him. It's not like he was brought back and he was at full Revenge of the Sith strength or anything like that. He was still defective. Like, you saw him. He was, like, tied up to all of that machinery. However, Snoke could walk around out and about, and in those tanks in The Rise of Skywalker with those disfigured versions of Snoke that were obviously, like, little failed versions, this just reminded me of that. So in my opinion, I could be wrong. Once again, this is very, very early setup for the First Order. And I know I keep repeating myself. I'm sorry. I'm just so excited. At that moment, when we had that same, I can't remember the theme, but it's the same as when Anakin was sat down with Palpatine in the Senate. It was like that, like noise. When that's playing, you know it's like mega dark sidey. And shite's getting serious. One thing I do want to say here, I do think maybe I have the possibility of getting a bit overexcited here, because I am not a fan of what they did in the sequels. Just, you know, that's my opinion. I know there's people who love it. I know there's people who don't love it. I'm not a fan of what they ultimately did with Snoke, Palpatine. So it's interesting that I'm getting so excited about this. I think it's just the fact that they tied in something to the grander, darker, evil, Palpatine kind of side of things. It makes your instant reaction like, holy crap, that's cool. I don't personally mind it. As well, as you could tell, I'm quite excited with the inclusion because this is a very low-key tie-in and setup, you know, that connects the child's midichlorians, M count, as Dr. Pershing said, to, like, the long-standing setup for what they canonically, unfortunately, did with achieving Snoke as a puppet, and then Palpatine's, you know, clone as well. So you get where I'm going with this. It's interesting for me. Opinions change over time. Maybe I won't be as excited after this review, but I think I didn't expect that. I didn't expect them to stumble across these tanks of potentially Snoke being and them trying to bring about a body that could wield the Force and have the ability to use the Force. So yeah, I think that's where my mind's at. Even though it's also interesting because I don't want to sound contradictory, but I'm not a fan of what it actually connects to, if that makes sense. But having said that, with what we learned at the very end of the episode, well, I may as well talk about this now whilst I'm on the top of it. I knew that guy was suspicious. I knew it. I knew it when we saw him. And I swear he's like the same race as the person Rey was trying to find in The Rise of Skywalker underneath the quicksand. Either way, I think Moff Gideon put that tracker because he knows Mando's quest is to return the child to his people, which are Force users in Mando's mind, or Jedi, even though Mando doesn't know Ahsoka isn't a Jedi, but as we all know, she doesn't define herself as that at all. So I think Gideon just wants to get his hands on anyone who can use the Force. So, like, that kind of means Ahsoka Tano's in danger, especially as we know Mando, unfortunately, is going to be leading Moff Gideon right to her doorstep. And how gutting would it be for fans? I'm not saying they're going to do this. The idea is to return, you know, oh, Ahsoka, have the child, right? I don't want to give up the child, but, like, have him. That's from Mando's perspective. Maybe that was going to be the plan. Maybe she was going to look after him. She gets captured or something like that, and then they plan to use her blood for the M count, midichlorian count, to help achieve the puppet Snoke and Palpatine return that we saw decades later from this very moment right now in the show. And that would really be sad if they used the means of Ahsoka to achieve that instead of the child. Or, like, obviously in their minds, they would get both if they can. And that is Gideon's plan, probably, to grab the child on Corvus and Ahsoka Tano. But maybe Ahsoka... people are going to be so mad if she sacrifices herself, with the original plan being, oh yeah, I'll take him in, but that never happens. And because she gets captured, and Mando, obviously, is then with the child for another season or two because, well, there's no other Force users that he knows of right now, even though we have... God, well, where's Cal Kestis? Where's Ezra? You get the idea. I know I'm rambling, but I needed to include those theories in there. I'm not saying they're serious at all, but we all know that the child's not going to be left with Ahsoka Tano. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, the child is going to be chilling with Mando for a long while yet. This moment was really interesting as well, because it's almost easy to forget that Mando didn't realize that Moff Gideon was alive, because he assumed he was dead, because we all thought that, but he obviously cut himself out of the TIE fighter, and this is where they're like, crap. If Gideon's alive, then this is the equivalent of walking into the wolf's den. Like, they've kicked a wasp's nest by going into this base. And this base was one of Palpatine's little kind of places. It's like the worst wasp nest to go into. So yeah, the immediate concern was for the child. He wanted to get back. I really, really enjoyed this part of the episode because I felt like the action was really well done. The shots of the ship, the Razor Crest coming in to save the others in the Trexler Marauder as they like got a gnat to get out of there. The scout troopers were deploying, even killing a couple of of themselves in the haste to get the Marauder. Yeah, this was all very interesting and entertaining action. I did have a little bit of an issue with the New Republic asking Grief Karga about, you know, is there anything else you can remember before the base exploded? It's like, no, it's like, why not tell them about the clones? I'm pretty sure the New Republic do not give a flying crap if you blew up an Imperial base. That's what they want to do. I don't get this part. Not only that, he could have informed them about these experiments. If he said clones, that would have got back to the Princess Leia or General Leia. You get my point here. I'm not saying they would have figured everything out, but they would have known that there's scattered Imperial remnants trying to do something cloney, and it doesn't take a genius like Luke. Well, I'm not saying he's a genius. Come on, Luke Skywalker, you get my idea. To figure out, oh, what if they're trying to bring back... I mean, think about if you were told about cloning. Like, you would think, are they trying to bring someone back? What are they trying to do here? Especially if it involved an M count. Especially if they retrieved and saved that message. They all heard it. They could have told that to the New Republic. I know this may be picky for some of you, but at the same time... It's just like, why not tell them? You're not going to get in trouble for blowing up an Imperial base. And also, I did actually like that New Republic officer saying that there's something going on out here. Like, they don't believe it in the core worlds, but it's true. These aren't isolated incidents. They need to be stopped before it's too late, but we can't do it without local support. Obviously, he's trying to recruit Cara, but at the same time, I think his commentary about the core worlds not believing it is very interesting, because I think with core world logic is, oh, Empire fell, Death Star dead, equals all good. But no, like, this guy's cottoning on, he's out there in the field, like, you know, X-winging out and about the place. He's saying, and he's realizing there is stuff going on. There was stuff going on canonically, as we know, the remnants turning into the First Order and things like that. They're trying to freaking clone, bring back Palpatine. But it doesn't go anywhere. And you got all the people back in the core thinking it's all over, and, you know, because just like every Republic, I swear that the ego, just like the Jedi in the prequels, it's just like, everything's fine, nothing to worry about, there's no dark side or bad things happening until there is and you're dead. But at the end, guys, freaking love this. We see Moff Gideon's Archon-class cruiser in space. The Imperial officer says you will be rewarded in a new era. Yet again, this ties into why I think it is kind of a Snoke setup in the cloning chambers, just because the new era, it technically is the First Order when they return. That is the new era dominating, well, not necessarily, well, kind of dominating force in the galaxy. The New Republic were around in The Force Awakens, but we all know what happened with that, with Starkiller Base. So that is kind of the new era, so that guy will be living life good when the First Order is about. And so they're tracking Mando's ship, and I really do feel like that moment when we saw Moff Gideon and those doors open and the cape amongst the mist, I feel like Giancarlo Esposito in an Imperial uniform like that, and the cape and the black kind of trimmed armor and stuff, he really does have like a Vader presence. I do not want to insult anyone by saying that, how dare you, like, Vader is Vader, but like, seriously, Giancarlo Esposito is a villain here, and I know he's played villainous roles before, but he owns it. And also, I don't know if you, well, I'm sure a lot of you did realize what he had in his little armor stations, but it looked like he had a bunch of Dark Troopers there. So Moff Gideon is going to arrive next episode on Corvus. Not only does he want to get the child, as we went over in the loose, think as I go along theories in this video, but he's going to try and get Ahsoka. And he's going to arrive with a legion of Dark Troopers. So, as I said, to recap one last time, very quickly, I think he's trying to bring about Palpatine or Snoke. Look like Snoke more to me. They're trying to do it with the blood, the midichlorian count, trying to put that into a clone body. It doesn't exactly work perfectly. There's a lot of kinks to work out, as we saw in the Rise of Skywalker Chambers. Didn't work well, and just look at Snoke, for crying out loud, and Palpatine. But I can imagine next episode, maybe Mando was going to give the child to Ahsoka. Maybe she even agrees to, like, look after him and educate him in the ways of the Force, and just, like, raise him safely. Because to Mando, he would have fulfilled his quest, because she is kind of his people in a way. They share that commonality of the Force. But let's assume, in a similar way to last season, like how Mando was going to leave the child in the village, that never happened, but this is going to happen this time. But really, we know it's not going to happen, because they're not going to get rid of the child anytime soon. Gideon arrives, Ahsoka's like, go! And then, like, Mando and Baby Yoda escape, and then Ahsoka Tano gets taken for the same blood-sucking reasons as what they were doing to Baby Yoda last season, to get her midichlorian count from the blood, and yeah, use it as a means to an end to achieve the body of Palpatine and the puppet of Snoke for the First Order. But we're gonna have to wait and see. I think that's the episode, guys. I've been talking for long enough as it is. I could blabber a whole bunch more, but that is what the comment section is for, so I'm dying to know your thoughts on what I've had to say. I think we could get some Darksaber and Ahsoka Tano versus action next episode. Could be some sacrificing going on there for the child and the future. But yeah, next week, it's gonna be crazy. It is going to be crazy. Trust me on that one. I think you know it already. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.